Hello everyone, today is the first episode of our channel, History Pages. I'm Mohammed, I'm your storyteller today. Have you ever heard of Atlantis, the legendary island that sank into the sea in a single day and night? Was Atlantis a real island? Where was it located? And what really happened to it? The story of Atlantis comes from the Greek philosopher Plato in two of his writings, Timaeus and Critias, where Plato wrote that a priest of ancient Egypt told the story of Atlantis to the Greek sage Solon. On his return journey, Solon shared the story with his cousin Drapides, who in turn told it to his son Critias, who told it to his grandson, who was also named Critias, who eventually shared the story with the philosopher Socrates and others present. Many books and television shows have discussed the possible location of Atlantis. Some writings claim that Atlantis is located in the Atlantic Ocean in front of the Strait of Gibraltar, which is a narrow strip of sea that separates Spain from Africa. It is said that the real Atlantis is buried in the mudflats of the Atlantic Ocean, which corresponds to the story that the sea in those parts is impassable due to a layer of mud in the way. In 2011, Richard Freund, an archaeologist at the University of Hartford, and his team found memorial cities built in the image of Atlantis. A series of buried cities were found in the swamps of Donana National Park, north of the city of Cadiz in Spain. It is said that Cadiz is one of the oldest cities that still exists in Western Europe. It is believed that the Phoenicians built it in 700 BC, but some records claim that the city dates back to 1100 BC. The Greek legend says that the city dates back even earlier. Why is the city of Cadiz important? Some believe that it is named after an Atlantean prince named Gadeirus, who was given rule over the easternmost side of Atlantis. Some believe that Atlantis was named after the Atlantic Ocean, but historical myths tell that Poseidon, the Greek god of the sea, had 5 sets of twin sons with his wife Cleito. Poseidon gave each of his 10 sons a part of the island to rule, but the island was named after his eldest son, Atlas, as the firstborn son, and even the water around it was named after him, and his sons would rule Atlantis forever. We know that Plato wrote 2 books about Atlantis, but today we only have a complete copy of Timaeus, but we do not have a complete copy of Critias. Critias ends after Zeus, the chief of the Greek gods, and we do not know if Plato left the book unfinished on purpose, or if the final version was lost long ago. We not only miss the end of Critias, but it is believed that Plato wrote, or at least planned to write, a 3rd book about Atlantis that he would have called Hermocrates, as this name came in a sentence in his 2nd book, Critias, in which he said, "Critias, we will give you what you ask, as we will give it to Hermocrates, and as we gave it to Timaeus." Some believe that the names of the 3 books may contain a hidden message, especially when one looks at the order in which Plato named them. Timaeus comes from the Greek theos, which means to honor. Critias comes from the Greek kratos, which means to rule. And finally, Hermocrates is derived from Hermes, the messenger of the Greek gods. In his book Timaeus, Plato honored Athens for its prehistoric championships. Critias is supposed to end with the rule of Zeus in Atlantis, but what message might Hermocrates carry? The answer may lie in what we know about Hermocrates himself. He was a seasoned military leader who helped lead the successful defense of Syracuse against Athens during the Peloponnesian War. Perhaps the message in Hermocrates' book addressed why Athens' attack on Syracuse failed, and how Syracuse was able to defend itself from invasion. Unless a copy of this book is found, we may never know the full story of Atlantis. I mentioned before that the story of Atlantis was told by an Egyptian priest to Solon, who was the wisest of the Greeks. Solon was trying to tell the priests about the oldest Greek stories that he could remember. He told them about a great flood and about the first man. After listening to Solon, one of the priests said, "O Solon, there is no old man among you, for all in your stories are young, and there is no ancient tradition in what you tell." According to the priest, the reason for Solon's lack of truly ancient knowledge is that humanity has been repeatedly destroyed. The priest said to Solon, "There have been, and there will be, many destructions of mankind caused by many causes, and perhaps the most violent are by fire and water. And when the gods purge the earth with a flood of water, the survivors in your country are the shepherds who dwell in the mountains. And so, if the only people who remain alive are the mountain dwellers who have no knowledge of their distant past, it is easy to see how the whole history of civilization will be lost." The priest believes that Egypt survived these disasters because it receives very little rain. The priest also said that Athens, the city of Solon, is much older than it was thought to be. It is found in the Egyptian records in Sais, and it is written that Sais was founded 8,000 years before their time. The records also say that Athens was founded 1,000 years before the rule of Sais, and that the Athenians of that time fought Atlantis. Solon lived from 630 BC to 560 BC. If the story is true, the fall of Atlantis occurred around 9,500 BC. This would make Atlantis as old as Göbekli Tepe, located in Turkey, which dates back to around 10,000 BC, and is considered the first temple in the world known by archaeologists today. When talking about Atlantis, most of us may imagine a green and fertile island surrounded by the deep blue waters of the ocean. Most of us may have assumed that Atlantis was nothing more than that, but Plato tells us that Atlantis was actually a great empire ruled from this island. Now, in this island of Atlantis, there was a great and wonderful empire that ruled the entire island and parts of the continent and extended its control to Egypt, Libya, and Italy. How did Athens manage to overcome such a large empire? We wish we could find Plato's lost writings to find the answer, or perhaps Plato had no idea, so he abandoned the ending. It is worth noting that there is a belief that the ancient Greeks and the ancient Egyptians were aware of the existence of the Americas. In their conversation with Solon, they told him that the island of Atlantis was a crossing point to a group of other islands, followed by a large continent that seemed to surround the ocean. If the Greeks knew what was beyond the Mediterranean Sea, did they want others to know? Perhaps not. And perhaps this is why Plato wrote that no one can sail in the Atlantic Ocean. After violent earthquakes and floods, Atlantis sank with its people into the depths of the sea, causing muddy waters that are impassable outside the Strait of Gibraltar. This may have prevented some from going beyond the strait. We have reached the end of our story today. I hope you enjoyed it. We will see you soon in a new page of the History Pages.